Hi guys, it's Kay here from Startup Creative. Welcome back to the Startup Creative podcast. I'm your host, Kayleen, founder of Startup Creative and author of How to Start a Side Hustle. And on today's episode, I am doing this as a video link, as on our YouTube, but you can also listen to audio. It should be fine. But I want to talk about public speaking. So, this is a topic that I get asked about a lot. I personally really enjoy public speaking. It's one of my favorite things to do as part of my business. And I'm very lucky to get paid to do keynote addresses and presentations and workshops and things like that. So, yeah, it's a topic that I feel pretty confident about. And I know that not everyone feels the same way. And I do get asked about people that could support with public speaking training. So, I'm going to teach you some tips on how I personally do presentations. So, this would be relevant for you if you're wanting on your goals list to present a workshop or a keynote address, or you're going into a pitch. So, probably, yeah, more from that kind of pitching perspective. It could also just be like, if you're going into pitch for a business opportunity, and then, even maybe in like a meeting with your boss or whatever it might be. But I'm going to give you some tips from like I guess the kind of analogy will be pitching as your business. So whether that's, to a new client or for funding or to be put forward for an opportunity. So um, I'll give you some tips and then a bit of a structure and some things that I kind of think about, do, and prepare in when I'm giving a talk or pitching. So hopefully this helps for you. Okay, first things first, whenever you're going in to do any sort of presentation, you want to start with knowing your audience first and foremost. So you kind of want to know who's in the crowd. If I'm doing a workshop or a keynote, or like, for example, if I'm going into another organization, so it might be, I know for me, when I used to do a lot of talks with General Assembly, they ran the RSVPs and there could be hundreds of people in the room. So they might know General Assembly, not necessarily me or Startup Creative. So one of the first things that I would do is kind of get a scope. And even now, if I'm doing a talk about a side hustle or Startup Creative, I'll ask who's got an idea for a startup, who's got a business already, or what stage they're at. So if you don't have that information beforehand, sometimes, I'll get asked to go into a company or a certain situation, I'll get a brief of the audience. And if I don't know it, then I'll get it on the day so you can get in the room. The best thing about that is what it does, it sets you up for success from the get-go, because when you know who's in the room, you know that you can get a gauge as to why they're there. That's another really good question that you could ask is, what was your expectation for today? If I'm in a small workshop setting where there might be about 30 people in the room, sometimes I'll just ask for a few people to yell out why what drew them to coming to that workshop in the first place and what they want to get out of it. This helps you to then hopefully be able to kind of think on your feet or just put it in context what people are expecting from you. And then you're setting yourself up to succeed in making sure that you try to hit those points. If you've done your prep and, most of the time people are coming to a workshop, they know who you are or what it might be, expect what they might be expecting, then you are going to have the content prepared for what they need. But it just means if, there is some rogue needs, or, there's specific point of views, or, if someone doesn't know who you are, you can spend a little bit more time explaining that. So knowing your audience is really important because it's going to help you to understand them and then meet their needs. And when you do that, then people will walk away happy and it'll be a memorable experience for yourself. And then also for the people who might want to come to another one or tell someone about it. So knowing your audience, doing that prep in advance, or don't be afraid to get to know them on the day, in person, live. If you are pitching to a business or a client. I often do this if somebody asks for business coaching, and it's easy for me to kind of look at their email address, or they've told me about what business they're looking to get help with. I can go and have a little bit of a look around what they're currently doing and give some initial feedback in my reply and be like, oh, yep, cool. I can see what you're trying to do. It looks great. Or, give some um yeah a recognition that I know who they are, and and I've done my research. So it helps you to build that connection with the audience, and then them also to trust you as well. So once you kind of have that information, and you've prepared, and you know who you're speaking to and what their needs are, you want to have a nice relatable way in. So this is kind of like, that opening catchy thing where you can disarm people, I guess, because a lot of the time when we're public speaking, or we're giving a presentation, or we're, speaking to strangers and asking for something, then there's often, I think, maybe just human nature. We're a little bit standoffish, and we can be a bit like, oh, what's this person going to ask, or what are they going to tell me, and who are they, and stuff. So, you can have a joke, is if you feel comfortable doing a joke. Again, like, you've got to do what's right for you. But a joke is a really good way to relax people. Quite physically, people will relax more when they laugh, they smile. It's a human connection. You could have a fun fact. Sometimes it's just like, oh, I rode a bike here and I nearly got hit by a car. I don't know, maybe not a good example, but just something relatable, like, oh, I just went to this great coffee shop from around the corner, or where you grew up, or what football team you follow. Something that is going to just disarm people, I guess, a little bit, and like make you relatable. um and, again, what I already mentioned is like a question. So if you're pitching, let's say, to a company, or you're giving a presentation in a workplace, you might have something up your sleeve that shows that you've done your research about them. So it could be like, oh yeah, I saw your recent Mother's Day campaign, and that was great, or that you guys did some work with this person, and or I've been following you for this, and I own this product, or whatever. So you can have that relationship building kind of way in that humanizes you, and relaxes everybody in the room, and then also just like gives a little connection piece between you and the audience, and kind of breaks down some of that, speaker barrier, I guess. And then just before we get into structure, some little tips that I learnt over the years. And I remember taking a few years to learn this and get comfortable with it, but it was a game changer to any presentation that I've done. And that is to get on stage, or to get up, and, whether it's a YouTube talk like this, or to, in a live audience space, is don't be afraid to take a breath, to make eye contact, and to like have a confident stance. Often, I know for me, my most nervous parts before presenting are right before I go on stage. It doesn't matter how much preparation I've done, how excited I am, how, good I know my content might be. There's always going to be nerves. It doesn't go away. But I get most nervous right before I go on stage. And so when your heart starts to race, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm about to go on stage. Or, you get handed the mic, or the stage is your, whether you're in a meeting, and, if someone says, what's your opinion? And those nerves kick in, it's really easy to lose your breath, and to go and kind of take that anxious like breath in, and then you try to talk from that, and you start your presentation, then you probably are going to go "Brrr," and then go, and you forget to breathe. And then also it's really obvious to the audience. And as an audience member, when I see people come in and not take a breath, and like hold space in the, and kind of center themselves first, and you can tell that they've just like kind of gone, taken a big breath in, and went, all right, here I go. I just need to get this over and done with. It's uncomfortable, because I'm like, I can see that you need to take a breath, or that you need a glass of water, or that, you're really nervous. So I've seen people be like, I am nervous, and that's also a cute, like a little way to disarm as well. And just, I think often audiences can really respond to that and go, oh, okay, let's show them some love. But one of the best things that I learned was when you come onto a stage or, spotlight is on you, instead of going and then racing off, come in, center yourself, take a big deep breath, and look around the room, make some eye contact with people, put your shoulders back. If there's a little voice in your head that you need to be like, you've got this, then, that's whatever that is for you. Take a look at your notes. If you need to have a glass of water, take your jacket off, just do something that just makes yourself feel confident. I think sometimes when we're presenting, and the nerves take over, it's this tendency to rush through it and forget that, you've been asked there for a reason, or this is, you've got some really great content to present, or that you're gonna pitch for a great opportunity. And you forget to kind of take up space and be like, no, I deserve to be here and I'm ready for this and I've got it. So it's okay. I think it's sometimes when you're on stage, a few seconds can feel like an hour, but being able to actually just stop and take those few seconds. When I learnt this from watching other people do it and going like professionals, like, through TED Talks and stuff, and being like, wow, I feel so much more comfortable as an audience member. I can sit back and go, okay, this person's going to take me, they're comfortable on stage. I don't need to stress out for them. I don't know if anyone else ever feels like that in the audience, but like knowing the person on stage is relaxed, then it feels like you feel like you're in good hands and you don't have to be worried about them. So prepare yourself before you start your talk rather than just being like, okay, I've got to go. Breathe, eye contact, confident stance, shoulders back, scan out across the room, smile. Yeah. Just show the audience you're good. Okay. Now, structure. Like I said before, like, you can have that relatable in, which sometimes it might just be like, something else that I used to do, just sort of then was that if I was doing a talk and I was, 15 minutes early and there were audiences gathering and, someone's going to introduce me, I will go around the room and introduce myself and say hi, so that when you do get up on stage and you're scanning the room, there's some people that you can smile at, or that you can say as you're kind of catchy opening, oh, I just met, Joseph down the back there, and he's got this great idea. So I'm really excited to like help you guys get going with your side hustles today. It's really, I met some people already, and you can call out names and make it, make everyone feel like it's a community and that you're there to help them. So you want to have your catchy opening, okay? So that can be a question, it could be a fact, it could be a, interesting thing, maybe that people don't know. So this is catchy opening is more content related. So, what is your way to kind of attention grabbing opening? Again, if you can make it funny and that's your style, highly recommend doing that. A lot of research that I have, books and things that I've read about public speaking and human behavior and connection is like laughter is a really nice way to help people to trust you and to relax. And when people are relaxed, they're more likely to take in what you have to say. And when they take in what you have to say, they're going to hopefully apply it to their own lives or learn something. And then you'll be a memorable expert for them. So, what is that catchy opening? It could be about you, could be about the audience, your content, something that's kind of going to grab people's attention. When I say make people laugh, if making a joke is not your thing, don't feel like you have to do it. There's nothing worse than someone trying to make a joke that it flops because they're so nervous about it. So don't be afraid to practice your jokes as well. So once you kind of got that catchy opening, then you can go into about you. So you don't want to maybe go too long on this, depending on the situation that you're in. It might call for it. But for example, if I'm being an expert on side hustles or business coaching or whatever it might be, then I might just do a brief little about me. Sometimes if I'm presenting, people will introduce for you, so you don't have to do that much. But the idea is to create some credibility. Again, this was something that I learned. I used to go to talks all the time when I first started, and I really enjoyed hearing people speak who created their credibility at the beginning. So it's like, why should I listen to you, really? What, like, because, we're busy and there's a lot of people who want to give us advice. And even though we are attending this workshop or we've called a meeting with you, we still might be a bit dubious as like, is this what I really signed up for? So creating credibility is a way for your audience to go, okay, I think I'm going to like this person. I think they're going to, have something that will be of benefit to me. So it could be what brands you've worked with. So you might, for me, I often will say, I've worked with these types of brands and this many coaching clients, and I run a podcast and I had a magazine. So whatever, again, it could be different for every audience too. So sometimes being in a business setting, or maybe if I'm talking to a brand or a business, I'm actually talking more about how many clients that I've worked with. Whereas if I'm with my clients, it's maybe about some of the brands that I've aligned with. That gives me credibility. So yeah, it can be different. So a little thing, snippet about you that can be that creates credibility and trust and helps people again to relax and trust you as the expert and you being on stage. Don't go on too long about yourself because I don't think anybody likes that. Okay, and then why you're here and where you're going. Again, I find this really helpful for myself. Again, it's like easing yourself into it, but it's also like so much about public speaking and pitching is about the trust that you have with your audience. So, do they trust you? Are they going to listen? Do you have their, how can you earn their trust? And, can you offer something of value to them? So, when you're starting out your talk, don't be afraid to say, look, today we're here to talk about this topic. And some of the topics, where some of the points that I'm going to hit are this, 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 and this. And then we'll round up with some questions. So if there's anything that I've missed, you can, let me know and I'll get to those at the end, or you can come and see me after the workshop or whatever that might be. Again, this I find very, maybe it's because I'm a bit of a control freak, but I really like it. And I'm also maybe, I like time, managing time and things, but I find it really safe when a presenter is like, hey, this is me. I'm going to start off by saying, telling you a little bit about what Startup Creative is. And then we're going to run through the 5 steps to starting a side hustle. And then we're going to have some questions at the end, or we'll, finish off with some marketing tips and then go from there. So that what people know what you're going to talk about. Again, it's kind of like that preview. You watch a preview, what's it called? A trailer for a film. You want to kind of get a gist of where the story's going and decide whether you want to stay, right? So that's where you can kind of outline the trajectory of the conversation that helps people to go, yep, I feel comfortable with this. This is what I signed up for. And, it also gives them stuff to look forward to so they don't get up and walk out of your talk. But also people have done that and that's okay because you just have to know that that's not for them. And you've probably done that before in the past as well. So, yeah, why are you here and where are you going? And then once you've kind of established that, then you can get into your key points. So you obviously deliver your presentation. Having some visual aids, I think, is really good, depending on the setting again. not making, again, if you're giving a talk, a lot of the time people are looking to engage with you as a presenter. So you don't want to be relying too heavily on like a script, that's up on a slide behind you with lots of words on it. You could have some visual aids that back up what you're saying, that maybe help to digest it, that give a, imagery or an analogy or an example of what you're talking about, but it should complement what you're saying, not be your script or, be too distracting. So your key points with some visual aids. Another really good tip is to check in as you go. So this can be for yourself. Don't forget to breathe. I am learning this because sometimes I find it a little bit awkward, but I've am getting better at it. Is to stop and to take a glass of water if I need it. So, if a sip of water, especially if you're talking for, often when I'm presenting, it's about an hour. But don't be afraid to, obviously speaking for an hour nonstop can be really hard on your throat and your voice. So stopping to take that glass of water and check in. So often how I do this, I'll say, is that all make sense? And that means that I get to check in with my audience and make sure that everyone's understanding, is everything making sense for people? Get a bit of a nod and a look around, take your sip of water while everyone's kind of contemplating, ask if there's any clarification needed. And then what that means is that you don't lose your audience, because sometimes, we do get caught up in our presentations that we can go, yep, I'm steaming along and this is making sense and I'm halfway through and I'm nearly done and like can't wait to get off the stage or whatever. But you also make sure that your audience is coming along for the ride. Again, all of these little moments are ways that you can make sure that you're connecting with your audience, because at the end of the day, if the audience has a memorable experience, they're going to tell people about you. They're going to say yes to whatever you're asking for, or they're going to share something on social media, or they're going to come back and buy another workshop from you, or they're going to come up to you afterwards and ask for some coaching or whatever that might be. So again, it's a really nice way to just pace yourself as well. Don't be afraid to be like, is this making sense for everybody? Are we all good? Are we all on the same page? I find it very comforting to slow myself down, to make sure that I'm looking after my audience and their needs are being met, and then also to breathe and take a sip of water. I had a note here to include personal experience if that's relevant. Most of the time, I think whether, whatever you're doing, I think personal experiences, anecdotes, personal experiences, are helpful because again, it's relatable. It's relatable. People can relate to you. They can, oh, yep, same. That makes sense. Just a note on that. Make sure it's not too personal. I think sometimes oversharing can make people feel uncomfortable. So, try to keep it in a professional sense and, have your personal experience planned out of what you are going to share so that, if you are an oversharer like me sometimes, you don't come up with something that's going to go rogue and make the audience uncomfortable. Um, so, when I'm thinking about presenting a workshop, and my kind of key points, I'll often start with the problem that I'm solving. So, who's got an idea for a side hustle, who's wants to leave their job, who has a side hustle, whatever it is, what are the problems that people might be experiencing around, coming up with an idea for a side hustle? What actions can they take? So, what is the clear action steps? Lay it out really clearly. And then, what kind of outcome and solution can they expect from that? So, if this actually really relates to most content that I do, whether it's a podcast, a blog, or a workshop presentation. You outline the problem or the topic that you're going to guide people through. Then you can give really clear actions, use your personal experience. When I was in this situation, this is what I did. And then here is the solution and here's the outcome and these are the results that you can expect, and have that at the end. So that's a really nice way to just manage your, or to outline your key points there. And weave in some personal experience there. And then at the end, you want to have a really strong call to action. So it might be that you ask people to, go and buy your book, How to Start a Side Hustle, or to get in touch with business coaching, or, if you're at a pitch for funding, it'll be like, and my ask is this. So I think often we can finish off a talk or a presentation and sometimes it's not always relevant, but if there is a clear call to action that you would like to finish on, then ask really clearly. Even if I'm presenting as a business coach in a workshop for people who want to start a side hustle or have got a business that they're looking to grow, sometimes I just finish that with, well, if you've heard something today that's been really helpful for you and that you've decided that you would like to action, then I encourage you to do that in the next 3 days, because motivationally speaking, that's when our motivation starts. If we don't take action within 3 days of being inspired by something, we become less likely to take it. So sometimes that'll just be how I finish up. But having that really clear call to action for people at the end, and don't be afraid to ask exactly what you want, especially in a pitch scenario. So I did a training like this for a bunch of people who were pitching for funding recently. And, sometimes people are looking for financial support. Sometimes people are looking for a business partnership. If you're pitching to a brand, maybe what your clear ask is, contra or marketing a shout out, whatever it is. So be really clear about how you finish off and make it strong. Okay. So I think the last 2 points that I had for you here is practice your body language. So be aware of that, like having your power stance so that you're not hunching, that you're constantly looking up to make eye contact and making sure the audience is still engaged. Personally, before I do most of my talks, I will do a power stance. So I'll put it, there's a link in the show notes that is about this body language talk that I watched. I think it was a TED talk years ago, and have always remembered it, and it's been really helpful for me. But it talks about how, doing power stances, like putting your arms in the air or your hands on your hips for, even for a few seconds, can help you to feel more confident. I'll always, like, if I arrive at a venue, I'll just go to the bathroom and be like, okay, and just take my breath rather than go straight into like networking. So I'll just, go and stand in the cubicle and do my power stance, get a glass of water, whatever it might be. But yeah, be aware of your body language, because so much of what you have to say will be said in the way that you present yourself and hold yourself. So smiling, eye contact, having a laugh, feeling comfortable and confident is going to help enhance your presentation. Visual aids I've already mentioned. And then finally, don't be afraid to take questions at the end. So, that's a really good way for especially if you're giving a talk and people have, paid for a ticket to come and see you. If there was something, their need wasn't met, and there was a topic that you didn't hit or answer for them, taking questions is a good way to kind of fill in the gaps, to make sure that everybody got what they needed out of it. And it's okay to say, I don't know that, or can I get back to you? So another really good point that I learnt is that if a question is asked, or like, for me, sometimes I'm even in a talk, have done a workshop, and at the end somebody asks a question, but it's really specific to their business and it's not going to help the wider audience, and it would just be a little bit, maybe get that might lose the rest of the audience because they've asked something that's really specific. Being able to say, would love to help you with that. Why don't you come and see me afterwards? Because it's a bit more of a specific answer. And then you can tell them to pay you for a specific. No, you can answer that question without losing the rest of the audience. And if you don't know an answer, you can say, yes, I'll have to get back to you on that. I'll need to do a little bit more research, or why don't you come see me after and give me your email address? I'll chase it up and find that answer for you and see what I can recommend. Okay, cool. So know your audience, have a relatable in at the beginning to just like kind of disarm your crowd and make them feel comfortable with you. Don't forget to breathe and make eye contact and compose yourself before you start so that you don't, run off one big deep breath. Have a really clear structure. So a catchy opening about you to build credibility, why you're here and where you're going. Hit those key points, check in as you go. Don't be afraid to use personal experience and have that clear call to action at the end. Yeah, well, I hope that helps. Let me know if there's anything particular that you need help with pitching in a particular environment, and always happy to help. Yeah, let me know how you go.